Welcome to another day of learning. And yesterday we talked about a lot of, can I say, advanced things. And I told us like, don't be afraid when you hear the word advanced. And, most times people do get confused with two things like complex and complicated. And when you say something is complex, complex means it entails, it comprises of the basic things, the basic building blocks. But complicated is just like something that is just what can I say? It's not easy. It's something that is just difficult to understand. So what we have been doing since yesterday is just like we are taking ourselves from the basics, then we are moving forward to the complex aspects. And by complex, I mean you bringing different blocks together. You know about block A, you understand what block B does, you are aware of block C, then bringing them together to build something large. So that is what I mean by complex. And by the word advanced, I don't mean something that is kind of confusing or something that is complicated. I mean moving forward from the basics, what can I say, the basics, then towards the next level, which is using the basic knowledge to build something that is much more useful. And yesterday we talked about a lot of things, and I told us like we are going to proceed today. So let's see what we have today. And trust me, today we are going to learn some new things. Trust me, this training is not me telling you what you've known before. It's all about me telling you what you don't know so that we can learn something new. So that is just the key. And the key is knowing what's it called, knowing something that you don't know before. So all right. So now with what you learn in the few sections, they are kind of advanced. So it does take some time to really grasp the concepts and understand them. And the best way to do that is to do this yourself. So whatever we do in class, just try your best, at your leisure time. I know you are busy, you have a lot of things to do, but trust me, seriously, if there is any blessing that I'm always happy with, is the fact that I'm a programmer or software developer in my own little way, and I'm working from home. Yesterday, no, a day before yesterday, I went out to repair my screen because I sat on my laptop screen and it got broken. And I just like, wow, how do people cope with this Lagos traffic? I've been at home, I don't go out, but then I'm working for some companies. So I'm always at home and I'm just like, how do people cope? Like spending 3 hours, 4 hours inside traffic and people are still moving around like, wow, how come? So I go back home, I was just like, I just have to thank God for my own. Like I made the right choice and I'm not my own boss. I'm working from people work. Then I'm always at home. And I move at any time I want. If they give me any task, like, what, Ridwan, we need to implement this, I can choose to do it at any time I want. The thing is, they give me a deadline and I need to deliver. So if I need to deliver a project, like maybe they give me like maybe a week deadline, I can decide not to do anything till a day to the deadline because I know, okay, it's something I can just do within some hours. So and I have enough time for myself. I have enough time for my friends. I can play. I can, So it might be like this, like you are just starting out and a lot of things are being thrown at you and you are finding it difficult to understand. But trust me, if you keep practicing, practice makes perfect. Nobody is born with all these things. So if you keep practicing, you get to learn a lot of things and you get to know a lot of things. And trust me, it's something you can just switch from someone that goes to work, like goes to the office 9 to 5. You can just switch and be working from your house, from the comfort of your home. Sometimes I don't have an opening, so I can decide like, okay, I don't want to take my bath by 7 a.m. I just like, okay, maybe by 11 a.m. I'll take my bath. Then I have the flexibility to do whatever I want. But then I still have to be productive because I need to deliver. But I have the flexibility to, like, I can work at any time. I can wake up in the middle of the night, something that I should do tomorrow morning. I can just wake up and do it. And tomorrow morning, I wake up, I can just go and play football. So that's just the life. So it takes some time to really grasp the concepts, and it takes some time for you to understand them. But the best way to do this is to, practice, do these things yourself. So That is why I always take my time to record the videos and I upload them immediately, at least within 24 to 48 hours. So I upload them immediately to the YouTube channel so that you can use these videos as reference to come back to, probably when you have questions and you are maybe you miss something in class and you want to like cover up. So that is that. And I'm going to cover the main topics today that you are going to see out in the world. When you start your journey like a developer, there are some of these things you will see. So I'm just trying to like introduce us to all these things because it will be okay for you to just come across them and you'll be like, "Ah, what is this thing again?" But I paid Ridwan for his time, for his data, for his what's it called, for his fuel. Then he didn't show me all these things. So I'm just trying my best to like whatever that you might come across later in life when you start this software development journey, you won't see something strange like something you haven't seen before. So that is why we really need to like touch all these things and show you how to use them, when to use them, why not to use them, and why to use something else. And if you remember, we've been talking about using our var to declare variable, to write functions. And yesterday I showed us a new way and probably the most beautiful way of writing functions of declaring um, variables. And I told us these are going to be the new ways we are going to like be declaring variables going forward. So we are going to be, our friend var. We have to like throw it away. We don't need it again because we have something useful, something meaningful. So I'm going to cover the main topics today that you might come across later, anywhere. So, and you can come back and reference these videos whenever you have questions. So if you have questions, if it's something you can, text me or send me a message on Discord or anywhere, I'm always ready to respond. So in this section, we are going to tackle advanced functions. We have the functions already, but we are going deeper now. So we want to know how to write the advanced functions. So don't mind me, I updated my VSC just now. So we'll be talking about, let me just delete this. We'll be talking about advanced functions. So I hope we can all see my screen. So and I have a sample for us. So we can just should I no we can just do this the old way we used to write our function. So I just have to like write it this way because I want to explain some things. And trust me, this might not be the best way you would want to like write some formula. So for this particular exercise, I'll be using our old ways, but then I'll still have to convert just so you see it and you know how to convert. So let's say we have a variable, we have a function, and the name of the function is first. We have a variable, and the name of the variable is great with a value of I. Then we have another function inside this function, and the name of the function is second. And inside the second function, we want to alert the variable that is outside the second function. And inside the first function, we want to return the second function. Oh boy, Ridwan, what are you doing? Don't worry. So, and outside these functions, I have another variable, which is new func. So, which equals whatever value that we have inside the first function is going to run this function and store that value inside the new func. Then I want to run this new func function. So how do you do that? So don't worry, I will explain what everything is. So with what we know, and what we've learned about the new JavaScript syntaxes, or what's the plural of syntax? I don't know. So we are going to convert this first function to how we should write JavaScript in 2020. So if you want to convert this function to how we should write functions, and we already know how to write functions in 2020. We don't have to be doing it the way they used to do it in 19 something something. So we have to convert this function to an arrow function, which by now we should know how to write an arrow function. If we don't know, it's something we can go back to yesterday's video and learn and see how we did that in case you missed that yesterday. So we have to convert this function to an arrow function, and we also have to change our variables. You can see that we are still using our var. I told us right now, moving forward, we have to break our relationship with var. We don't like them anymore because we have somebody that is way cooler than them. So, we just have to go const, which is, I use that to replace var, const first equals arrow function, arrow function. And with this function, I have another const greet variable, and I want to store the value of I. And after that, I have another function, which is, I can use const for these two. So you can use const or let if you want, but don't worry, I just want to use this to explain some things. So this second function has a lot, then it has to print out the greet for us. So then we have to return the second function inside the first function. Oops, no. So we are returning this function inside there. Then outside the function, we have our guys, which, let me just copy them up. Then I'll comment their house, just in case you need to see what we did and, So outside, I have const new func, which takes in the first function. Then I run new func. So as you can see here, there's nothing special. It's just me converting, the old ways of writing functions to the new ways of writing function, which is using fat arrow. We call it fat arrow, but later they are like, what? We don't want to call it fat arrow so that some people won't think, they are body shaming them, those things. So we are calling it arrow functions. So you see this a lot. They call it arrow functions. So this is the old way of doing things, which we don't want. So I commented this out. So we have this, and what we want to talk about is not how to convert old functions to arrow functions. We want to talk about something else. I just want to show us, in case you come across any function, you know how to convert it to arrow function. So we also learned about scoping. If you remember, we learned about scoping, like JavaScript variables can belong to the local scope or global scope. So a function can access all variables defined inside that particular function. But a function can also access variables, they can also access variables defined outside of that function. So an important property of function is that the variables created inside of a function, something like this, including the parameters, are local to that function. So if you have a parameter here, let's say, they are local to this particular function. So that, every time we run this function, let's say we want to run this new function, every time we run first function, this block of code here, this block of code gets executed, and greets variable gets created. Every time we run this function, first function, every time we run it, the block of code here gets executed, and variable greets gets created every single time. Now, this is actually good, right? Because if we make our program to remember the greet variable every time we run first, then there will be conflicts, because greet is a constant and we are constantly reassigning the same thing to a variable that already exists. So to prevent this, we make sure that every time we run a function, it is a clean slate with no side effects. Don't worry, I'm throwing a lot of grammars like, what do you mean by clean state? What do you mean by side effect? Don't worry, just like we did yesterday, all my grammars that I'm going to blow up and down, don't worry, I'm still going to calm down and I'll show us some examples and we can understand the grammars I'm trying to blow. So inside functions, you can name variables however you like because there is nothing else that will collide with it. Because we can also have, in another function, we can have different functions and we can have, let's say we have, okay, let me copy this. So we can also have another function. Oops, come on. So let's say we have another function and inside this function, I can say this is third function. And I also have, let me say fourth function. So inside this function, I also have another variable declared. So these are not going to collide because they are inside different functions. And you know that different functions, they have a world of their own. They are just there until they are run. So these won't, the greet inside there won't collide with whatever that is here. They don't know each other. They don't know each other. Until you call them out, they don't know each other. So let me just delete that. So a local variable can only be used inside the function where it is defined. For example, this greet is a local variable. So this greet here is a local variable to this particular function because it is inside a function, it's a local variable. And if you remember, any variable that is outside is what is a global variable and it can be accessed by any code. So a local variable can only be accessed inside the function where it is defined. It is hidden from other functions and other codes. So this behavior prevents accidental interferences between functions. And as developers, we want to minimize the number of bugs or the number of errors in our code. So if all variables were shared by the whole program, it takes a lot of effort to make sure like no name is ever used for different purposes. So that is why sometimes it is beautiful to have functions instead of just writing codes everywhere. Don't worry, you'll see some examples. So global variables live. If you have global variables here, let's say we have let name equals read1, which is a global variable, but it's not inside any function. Global variables live until the page is decoded. So if I have this on my website and it's running until I close that website or probably move to another page, that is when this local variable won't stop to exist. So local variables live until the page is discarded, like when you navigate to another page or you close the window. So local variables have short lives. Sorry, I mean, this is local variable. They have short lives. They are created when the function is invoked, and they are deleted when the function is finished. So imagine we have greet. Imagine if greet was in another function and we have no idea, we had no idea and we can't use it. So well, luckily, by having our separate scope, we are able to make sure that we can use greet without having to check the entire code. So imagine you have, let's say you have thousands of lines of code and you want to use a variable and you are afraid like, what if, have I declared this variable before? Or is it somewhere else? It might be kind of stressful for you to just be going through all your codes, looking for a constant variable, or maybe you have let variable somewhere and let greet somewhere, and you don't want to like tamper with the way greet is. So you are thinking of, okay, instead of me using variable name greet, probably I think I have to use greet1, greet2. If you have functions you don't have to bother about, you know, having, oops, please let's mute ourselves. Okay, I've muted everyone. So you don't have to worry about having this variable declared elsewhere in your code or in other functions. So by treating a function's local variable as existing only within a function, the language makes it possible to read and understand functions as small universes. So what I mean by that is this particular function has its own universe on its own. This particular function has its own universe on its own. Whatever that is happening here is happening here. It doesn't really concern here. So whatever that is happening here, it's happening here. Until you run this particular function, this function won't know what is running here, and this function won't know what is running here. So everybody is just doing their own. So they are just there, you know, doing their own thing. Until you call them, they are just lying there. So, you know, it is possible to have functions, you know, as small universes, where whatever happens in that universe only matters to that universe. But I also want to demonstrate an interesting concept with JavaScript, and that is with closures. So let me just write it here. Closure, whatever, what's it called? You want to use, accent you want to use. So there is this concept in JavaScript called closures. So I'm actually going to delete this so that we can have everything at the top. So what is a closure? A closure is the combination of a function bundled together, you know, enclosed together with references to its surrounding states. So in other words, a closure gives you access to, you know, an outer function's scope from an inner function. It is plenty. So if you see this code over here, we have a function first, and inside this function first, we have what's it called? An inner function. There is a name I want to use. Um, okay, I'll remember later. So we have an inner function. So it is inside that function. So it's just like we have a function inside a function. So to use a closure, you have to, you know, define a function inside another function and expose it. To expose a function, you return it just like this. You return it or pass it to another function. The inner function will have access to the variables, you know, to the variables in the outer function scope, even after the outer function has returned. So closure makes it possible for a function to have private variables. So as you can see here, we have the first function. I think instead of me deleting that, let me just return this. Let me use this to explain so that we can see the old ways and probably we can explain. So we have first function and we have another function inside the first function. And inside that first function, we are returning second function. So here we have a function inside a function. And this function can access what is outside it, but inside the function there, it is also inside of. So this second function have access to greet variable. So whatever that is here, this function has access to that. So let me just return that because we don't want to be doing things the old way. We are mature. We are now advanced programmers. So excuse me. So you can think of it as this. A function runs, the function is executed, the function returns a function that has access to the first function's variables. So kind of like the first function that, you know, we have, we just executed it here. So we have this, and we put the result into a new function. So this new function is going to remember that there are references to those variables, like constant variables, alive in a memory of first function. However, there is a problem here. You know, you see that when we load up this program on our website, the JavaScript engine will say this like, okay, we have a function, and inside this function, you know, we have a variable called first, which is a function. And then in the next line, we want to assign a new variable, and we want to give it the result of first function. Then we run this function. Excuse me. I'm talking too loud. So the program runs first and sees that, you know, we want to create a constant greet. So you want to create a constant greet which stores a value of I. Then it also sees that we have another function called second, and we are returning this second function. We are returning it back, you know, we are returning it back in the first function, you know. But the problem here is that second needs to remember what greet is, which is this variable greet. So this second function needs to remember what greet is. Although first function is going to run first, so after running, it returns second. And what is second? This is second. So let me just put it this way. So let me just delete this. So first function is going to run. So after running, it's going to return this function, which is this second function that we have here. So I actually know that this looks kind of confusing, but just look at what, you know, what I have here, this second function. So just look at what I highlighted here. That is what first function means. It means return this, because we have this. So first function is saying return this. And what is second? This is second. So return second. So we are returning second there, and we are saving it inside this new variable, which is new func. So, but as you can see over here, that the greet variable, which is this, is not within the scope of the second function, right? So what closure does is, you know, and this is the rule in JavaScript, is that the child or the child scope always have access to the parent's scope. So this is the child scope. It has access to this greet variable, which is the local scope to this first, but a global variable to the second function here. So it's just like it remembers it. So they always remember they always remember that there is a reference to those variables that they are actually using. So inside the web browser, the web browser says like, you know what, this second function needs greet. So if I want to alert greet, well, you know, I'm going to remember it. So let me just demonstrate this for us, then we can probably understand what I'm trying to drive at. So let me just return this back to the way we have. So now let me just copy this. Oops, I need to run this code. So let me just copy this and paste it to our console. Then probably we can actually see what's going on here. So if I do this, if I paste this, you know, oops. So we have this. And if I run this again, let me run the first function again. So if I run this again, you know, we have I coming out. So I get I. Even though the first function is not going to run again. You know, the only thing that we have left is the second function, which is this alert greet. So the web browser is going to remember it. So again, this is a confusing concept when you encounter it for the first time. But like I said, just remember closures as something like, and it's just saying like the function is going to run. So first function is going to run, the function is going to get executed, and it's never going to execute again, but it's going to remember that there are references to those variables in the function, which is this const variable. So the child scope always has access to the parent scope. Now you may be wondering like, okay, what if inside this code, let me just refresh this before. So what if inside this code, oops, I'm coming. I hate seeing those errors. So what if inside this code, we do something like const, oops. We do something like const, let's say name equals my surname, Balogun. So what if we had const Balogun? Will the first function, which is first, have access to const name Balogun? No, it won't. It won't have access to it. So think of it this way. Children always have, like children, like cost constant here, they always have access to their parent scope. So like second function here, have access to whatever that is outside of it. And even if we declare a variable here, like let's, what can I say? Let's sport, yeah. Let's sport equals football. So this is what we've done, and this is the third time I'll be doing this, like explaining global and local variable to us. So if we have a global variable outside there, this first function have access to this variable. But whatever that is outside this function won't have access to whatever we have inside this function. So children always have access to their parent scope, but parent scope don't have access to their children. So this first function won't have access to this const, name Balogun. So in JavaScript, all functions have access to the scope above them. So JavaScript supports nested functions. So that is the word I actually wanted to remember the other time, nested functions. So I'm nesting a function here. I can also nest another function here. Like I can say const new function equals this function, and here I'm returning something else. So you can have nested functions. So JavaScript supports that. So in summary, variables first this variable first is assigned the return value of of the function, second function. So first function only runs once. It sets greet to high when it runs and returns a function expression, which is this second function. So the second function inside it have access to the greet variable in the parent scope, and this is called JavaScript closure. So this is called JavaScript closure. So a closure is a function having access to the parent scope even after the parent scope have ran and closed. So all right, that is mouthful, but then if we are not still clear about this, we can rewatch the video and we can ask questions afterwards. So that is that about closure. So the next topic